Hello YouTube. This is just your friendly neighborhood security guard. Alright. Um yeah, so I grew out my beard. It's something new. My lady likes it. My boss said it was okay. I don't work in the medical or retail aspect, so I'm okay with it. Plus it's masked. Everything is masked up, so it doesn't even matter at this point. But I got some information for you guys that you guys might be interested in, might not be interested in. One of them is that Allied Universal, or should I say Allied Bidco, has recently just bought out G4S. Now, originally they were trying to buy them out for $4.2 million, and G4S settled and negotiated on 5 billion. That's what it said, 5 billion, which is equivalent to, is actually 3.8 billion pounds, which turns into 5 billion US dollars. So what does that mean for the people working in the security industry as a whole? It means that now Allied Universal has now acquired contracts in the 85 countries that G4S serves security for. So with that being said, it's about to be a little bit less competition now. It's a lot less competition because, for those of you that don't know, Allied Universal also, a few years back, bought U.S. security services. And how I know that is you probably haven't been seeing them that much anymore, but I'm gonna tell you why. So I worked for a company when I worked in North Carolina, in Raleigh, for a company that was based out here in Virginia called Old Dominion Security Services. Supposedly the CEO of that company sold ODS to U.S. security services, and when that happened, when we got the news, I knew I was going to quit instantly. Why? Because they have a very bad reputation. Corporate security entities, for the most part, are warm body companies. They just, shuffle in people at the last second, give you the crappiest contracts. If you're just trying to get a job to make a dollar, it is what it is. But there's hardly ever any advancement in those positions because those contracts, they low bid them. They cutthroat. They're just cutthroat companies. But that's the name of the game. Capitalize and dominate as much as you can, to increase your revenue. I get it from a business standpoint, but they don't treat their employees right, which is why I was quick to leave them as soon as I found out that U.S. security was taking over ODS security. Anyway, so now Allied bought out U.S. security. Now you see how that goes, right? ODS got bought out by US. US got bought out by Allied. Now, I don't know the full reason as to why ODS got bought out, but I do believe it was possibly because of the fact that Old Dominion Security was operating in North Carolina, and I don't think they were fully equipped to deal with the two branches that they had. Also, Old Dominion Security was one of the very few companies, smaller companies, that had its own private police department. So you weren't just getting security, you were also getting police as well. I think one of the major contributing factors as to why Old Dominion, now this is just speculation because I worked for them for almost 3 years. I think it was because we had a couple armed officers that had a few negligent discharges, accidental discharges, while they were employed with the company, and that kind of like set the precedent for, decision making, contract calling, and all that crap, which is why I really can't stand working for bigger security companies, because the minute that something goes wrong, they usually have responsibility because they hire just about anybody. They don't really do any rigorous, continual education or training, and if they do, it's very barely, rarely, and minimal. shit, excuse my language, but most of the time these bigger companies don't even send you to the range. They only let you go to the range when it's time to qualify based on your state's mandate, like, every year or whatever. So basically, I think what happened was they had a lack in HR support and management support, and they were operating in two separate states. Their home state was Virginia. They branched off to North Carolina. They put a couple armed guards at a couple armed, contracts, and I know for a fact because we had, at my site, when I worked at the hospital, they sent 3 officers from the other hospital, and essentially they were demoted and put on probation because they had an accidental discharge, which I'm pretty sure there was negligence in what actually caused the discharge, because 2 of the officers told me that, the way that they handled the weapon, were trying to clear it. They had their finger on the trigger and they shot unintentionally and it went down into the ground. So U.S. Security probably, they probably put a bid in. Old Dominion Security bought it, sold it, and then here's what's crazy. I don't know if you guys know about this, but back in Tennessee, I think it was Tennessee, I can't remember what state it was exactly, but there was an officer that was hired to work in one of the hospitals, I guess, that U.S. Security already had, or that they acquired from another company that they had swallowed up. And they hired this officer who the defense says that the family members say that he had a mental condition, but he pretty much got caught performing, he got caught having sex with a deceased person in the hospital. The act is known as necrophilia. There was a big thing about it. The hospital, the company, the person. It was a big investigation. And then shortly afterwards, U.S. Security got bought out by Allied. Now, in situations like that, I think what winds up happening is that before the company or the corporation winds up, because it was all over headline news, security guard caught fucking a dead body. Just think about it. It's crazy. But so for you guys that are new to my channel, I just started this channel. It's not a monetized channel. You can like, subscribe, comment however you want. I'm actually reaching out to other guards on the platform, trying to get people as much information. I currently work in Virginia. Soon to be headed to Texas soon. Going to be looking into advancing in my little field of work that I've been doing so far for the past 10 years down in Texas, and hopefully I get something better. Currently, I am a supervisor for a private, smaller, independent-owned company. I prefer to work for those instead of the bigger corporations, because the bigger corporations, they have pros and cons. There's a lot of flack going around as far as like insurance and all that. So yeah, it's just a bunch of crazy stuff. But anyway, for those of you that don't know me by now, I pretty much can speak professional. I use a little bit of profanity every now and then, but that's just trying to give you the real me. I'm a dad, so yeah. It gets stressful sometimes, but it is what it is. So basically what I'm touching on is that now Allied, it doesn't surprise me that Allied Universal has bought out G4S. I always knew it was going to be one of the two that were going to buy each other out, because Allied, as you know, used to be Allied Barton, and then they became Allied Universal. And prior to that, I think they were just Allied Security Services. And they also have a branch or a sister department in their company, whatever you want to call it, where they do I guess you could call it maintenance service or housekeeping services, because they also have like janitorial services. So when you work with Allied, you can either do security or you can do janitorial. But anyway, back to the point. The point is, right now what I'm seeing is that Garda recently got bought out by Loomis, from what I understand. Garda is now either merged or owned by Loomis. And if you guys don't know who they are, they pretty much do security as well, but they're mostly into the armored courier, the armored trucks, if you will. And they got bought out, but originally I guess they were trying to sell, or they were being offered to be bought out by Allied, and I guess they declined, and now I'm hearing from the grapevine that Loomis is the one that owns them. Something about their trucks always breaking down, and they had too many thefts in their company, or whatever the case was. I guess the people just said, "Oh, the hell with this, we're not doing this no more," and the CEOs just bailed out. So now, okay, so check this out. Now you have Garda that is merged or owned by Loomis. You have U.S. Security and ODS Security, which was a smaller company, but U.S. Security was a national corporation. They were like all over the country. And they got swallowed up by Allied, bought out by Allied. And now you have G4S that was bought out, or supposedly integrated, merged, whatever the hell they did with their shares and stocks in the United Kingdom and the European countries. And Allied has acquired 85 countries outside of the U.S. So now Allied Universal, if they weren't international before, they're international now. It's crazy because right before the pandemic hit, I was working for Allied, and I worked for Allied at a hospital out here in Virginia. And when the pandemic struck, the question was raised, are we going to get, hazard pay, being that we're in whatever. And this is a growing trend that I'm hearing, that is usually based on the client contract, and this is where I kind of like disagree, because I don't work for the client. I'm employed by the contractor. So as an employee for the contractor, being that I'm not a contractor, I feel that this job should automatically offer paid vacation, this, that, and the third. And if you look at Allied's updated policy, I don't know what their updated policy was. I have the policy book from when I worked for them about a year ago now, maybe 2 years. I don't know. I worked for them last year. Their policy, it says something about benefits are offered based on a contractual basis, I guess, with the client. Or I may be wrong, because they do offer health insurance, but they don't offer FMLA or anything like that. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, pretty much Allied Universal has bought out G4S, so now you're about to see a whole roller coaster of things happening now, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be changes to policies, and there's going to be amendments, to existing policies, and there's just a bunch of stuff. So right now, this is what you got going on now. Now, I don't even know if we should consider G4S in the ringer anymore, because I know G4S does a lot of big type of corporate security, like for major players in the industry, political world, all that. They do that. But right now, all I see is Securitas, Loomis, Allied, maybe G4S somewhere in there. I don't know how, in what aspect though, because they even have K9 handlers, so and you have Paragon. And for those of you that don't know about Paragon gets a lot of the federal contracts, like court buildings and federal office buildings and stuff like that, Social Security office, stuff like that. Recently here in Virginia, one of the security officers was shot about 4 or 5 times by a gentleman that was, I guess going through some issues, and he brought a firearm to the Social Security building out here in Virginia, and he shot at the officer because there was I guess he was there to pick up he said he was there to pick up his mother's or his grandmother's paperwork, because something about her disability check or something like that. And according to the officer, he told the officer, "Let me in the building," and he pulled a firearm out on him, shot the officer, hit his vest. Thankfully, officer returned fire, and unfortunately the man died. But that's the type of shit you deal with when you work in this type of job. You always got to be on your toes. Situational awareness is number one. It's prime. It's everything. It's the determining factor of whether or not you go home or not. Like whether you're in unarmed capacity or armed capacity, you always have to be on your A game. You don't like what you do, you don't think that this is serious, then you don't need to do this type of work. I tell you right now, don't you come up in this type of job and put my life in danger just because you want to stare at your phone for 4 hours and not let me know if there's something suspicious or something that's a safety concern going on around us. But anyway, so back to the story. When the question was raised up about getting hazard pay, they said they were in talks. The CEO, Steve Jones, sent out a private email with a video that was posted on Allied Universal site, but it was only allowed to be viewed by employees of the company. I screen recorded it. I've been thinking about uploading it, but it doesn't really do any justice to upload it. I don't want to see no arbitration shit come after me. But all in all, he never mentioned anything. All he did was thank the employees for what they were doing and to, we need you more than ever because blah, 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 blah. So I think it was a fucking, oh my God. But anyway, so Paragon is a sister company of Securitas. So if you're applying for Securitas, I strongly recommend that you do not apply for Securitas, even though they have probably like state, local government, contracts, but most of their stuff is like homes and retail and all that bullshit. And they don't pay anything. They really don't. They really don't. Unless you're working in another country where they have the regulations in their countries for security is a lot more in depth than it is in the United States, because every state over here has their own regulations. But I found out in other countries like Germany, I got some friends that are from Germany on my Instagram that they have to go to school for like 2 years in order to do security, and it's because they somewhat have powers of a police officer out there, so it's a little bit different. They get paid a little bit less than a police officer, but they get paid a lot way more than me and you. We're talking about European countries. You know what I'm saying? But, and that's the thing that I find, crazy, is that these big corporate security entities, they claim that here in the States that they base their pay off of how much they agree to the contract and how much they, can offer you as an employee based on whether or not the client agrees to pay a portion of that. It's just a bunch of crap. It's just a bunch of crap. There needs to be, at least at a federal level, some type of regulation as far as like, not so much as compensation. I'm not even gonna get into the wages, but I feel like if you're working security in any capacity, the minimum should be at least $15. I'm sorry. And I'm not even saying that because of the whole thing that's going on with the president and, this COVID relief bill. But I know guards that are working at like $7.25, $8 an hour, and I don't want to hear this crap about, oh, because of the cost of living is different. And I don't want to hear that, because at the end of the day, a police officer makes no less than $40,000 a year, no matter what state he lives in. So I don't want to hear this cost of living crap. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to hear that. And he's putting his life on the line just as I am. He's probably in more danger than I am, because he's literally surrounded by anything can happen, because he's always on the move in whatever jurisdiction that he operates in. But the same thing could happen if I'm working in retail right now, if I'm working in a grocery store. Like, we just had an officer get shot and killed by some lady's husband because he had an argument with her, told her she couldn't come in the store because she needed a mask. Words were exchanged. She came back with her husband. Her husband got into an altercation with the officer, shot him dead in his freaking Family Dollar. Like, this is insane. Like, this is insane. And I don't even know how much that guard was making, but I can guarantee you right now he wasn't making $15 an hour for his life to be taken. You know what I'm saying? Like this, and I get it. It's an at-will, voluntary type of job, but to think that someone would risk their life doing this type of work for you, and you're only paying them like fucking under $10 an hour, whether they're unarmed or not, is just crazy. It's just crazy. Anyway, I'm not saying this information to deter you guys from getting into the industry. If you want to get into the industry, by all means do it. I have a couple other videos. There's a couple other people that I'm following right now on Instagram and on Facebook. I don't really follow anybody on Facebook, because you got a lot of RoboCops on Facebook, which amazes me as to how they're not being flagged. But anyway, Instagram, you can follow this page called Security Guards United. They do giveaways for officers. They post up information and stuff like that. You also have this I can't remember the guy's name, But I'm gonna do my homework on it, and I'm gonna put his channel in the description. I'm gonna give him a shout out. There's another one up here. I think his name is Officer. I can't remember, but I watch a lot of these channels. I also watch a lot of the, I pay close attention to what Donut Operator is doing. What's his name? I think it's Officer 88 or something like that, or Signal 88. I can't remember his tag on here, but I watch his. But yeah, and those guys are police officers or retired police officers, and it's always good to take information from law enforcement, even if you're not in the state, because some of the stuff you can apply in any state, any situation. Usually, I guess you could call it, they do a lot of quarterbacking, but that's okay, because you need that, because that's what gives you effective training and teaches you, oh, okay, what would happen if I came across something like that? What should I do? At least you've had a scenario that you've watched and you could compare and contrast from. But yeah, guys, so if you guys want to work for a company, just be very wary of what company you work for. Just know that in the event, like what happened to me when I worked in North Carolina, I started off with this company named Old Dominion when I got back into the security world, and then shortly after, Old Dominion sold the rights to another company. We lost all of our benefits. The policies changed. The whole dynamic changed of what we were doing at the hospital compared to now working under U.S. security. And that eventually affected the employees, because once I left, I heard from the grapevine that everybody started leaving, and I was one of the last. I was one of the last guys from my group that was hired to work for the hospital, still there. And then when I left, all the other people were like, "Oh well, hey, if he's leaving, that's a red flag. Like, I should be leaving too." And I was, got phone calls from the sergeants and the corporals telling me to come back, and I know what it was. It was all a business ploy. They really didn't want me to leave because I had a really good rapport with them. But at the end of the day, like I tell everybody, you got to do what's right for you. And I knew what was coming, so I already had a game plan ahead of time. I was like, okay, U.S. security's taking over. I'll probably be here for a month. They gave everybody a 25-cent raise. Oh my God, like this shit was just unbearable. You can't even make this up. But then when I worked for Allied and this COVID hit, the CEO sent out a crappy video telling people thank you, and we're going to be working together closely, and we're going to get through this together. And then there was never no mention of a hazard pay. The hospital administrators were fumbling at the decisions that they were trying to make, foaming at the mouth, not knowing how they're going to proceed, giving everybody this false sense of hope. And here we are, almost a year into the freaking pandemic or more, and I don't know any officers that are making hazard pay during this COVID. And I feel like, personally, with everything going on, from the protests to the transitions of political power, and, you had the civil unrest on both sides of BLM, Antifa, and, it's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. And then you guys want to hire security, but you don't want to pay the bill because you can't afford it. Look, you guys are billion-dollar companies hiring billion-dollar corporations to do security. You guys can pay. You guys can pay. You just choose not to. And if you expect me to put my life on the line to work for a Burger King company, it's not going to happen. I'm not working for a Burger King style company. I mean, at this point, no shade to Burger King, but I'd rather work at Burger King. People love me because I got to make their food. But it is what it is. Anyway, like, subscribe, comment, share. I'm going to be uploading this video just for, informational purposes only. And I'm going to be tagging those guys that I follow in this. And hopefully things stay, they get better. If not, it is what it is. Stay on your toes. Watch your six.